Welcome to AIMAI virtual homecoming with our AIM gurus. It's really a great feeling. And without further ado, I would like to hand over the platform to today's Master of Ceremony, Professor Chua Borromeo. Professor, all yours.
Okay, let's see. All right, here we go. So good evening, everyone, fellow AIMers and former students. So tonight, this was a great idea of the Alumni Association of AIM India to host a first of its kind, a Zoom homecoming. And as you know, as most, probably all of you know by now, the homecoming for 2020 was canceled, and many of the activities, of course, that went with it had to be canceled as well. And so I thought this was a good idea of Nikhil and his colleagues to try and nevertheless provide an opportunity for alumni, as many as possible, to get together. And he thought that Nikhil and his colleagues thought it would be a good idea to bring on board some of the profs, mostly the older ones, I suppose, to try and, if you look at the frequency distribution of alumni, I guess somewhere in the middle, all right, between 1971 and 2019, if you were to get the professors who were around that the middle of that period, then they would be known to many of the alumni. So I'd like to start. What we're going to do is we're going to give a chance for each of my colleagues after I introduce them to chat for a few minutes about themselves, what they've been up to, and maybe share with all of us what is their most memorable experience at AIM. Now, I'm going to start with my own recollections, if you will, and this will be followed by a very interesting, very nice video put together again by Nikhil and his crew and his colleagues, which shows a number of the classes that have graduated from AIM from the very beginning up until 2019. So if you'll allow me, let me share my screen here, and we can get this show on the road. Okay, here we go. All righty. Okay, so this is, I'm Junbo Borromeo. Most of my students and staff and everybody else, they just call me Prof Junbo. And I'll try and limit myself to 5 minutes here, my memories of India and the Indians. First of course, I'd like to start by introducing my colleagues who are here tonight. There's Richard Cruz. Richard, where are you?
I'm here.
Okay, there he is, folks. Big hand for clap, clap, clap. And then, of course, our favorite operations professor, Professor Rene Domingo, Mr. Total Quality Management. Clap, clap, clap. Yeah, there he is. And Ron Chua. Ron, where are you?
Here.
All right. You'll notice, folks, he's got this red, Nikhil, what do you call that? On his forehead.
The tika. That's called a tika.
Yeah. All right, because this was obviously during Diwali night. Okay, and that's his wife Annabelle and his kids, all grown up now, going to college. Okay, there's Rocky Lee wearing a party hat. Yeah, he's a party boy.
That captures the spirit.
All right, okay. And there's Maya Herrera, okay. And she is all made up also. I think this may have been Diwali night as well.
Wow.
Maya, where are you? Maya, yoo-hoo!
That's fantastic.
Getting a drink maybe. Anyway, for everyone, happy birthday, Maya. It's her birthday tomorrow.
Oh, happy
let's all
birthday.
wish her-
Happy birthday.
Let's all wish her well. Next, he will try and catch up Professor Titos Ortigas over there on Tiger's Night. He's always playing with his band. And then, of course, our very own Ricky Lim, who will try also to catch up because there's been a major power failure at his residence where he lives. Okay, now not with us tonight, but still, I know these are amongst your favorite professors. Mau Bolante here, Gloria Chan, never mind this guy, we've introduced him already. Professor Galigo over there, and Tet Manyalak, okay, everyone's darling. And last but not least, my drinking buddy, and I hope his wife is not watching this presentation, my drinking buddy, Professor Roman. And here he is being challenged by one of the Indian students. I think this was somewhere in Delhi.
Yeah.
And of course, Frankie loves to take up this sort of challenge. See what I mean? And as the night progresses, they switch to another kind of drink. And there they go again. And that's how the night ends.
Yep.
Okay, now let me tell you, my own AIM journey began as a student of the Master in Management in 1977. And my ping pong partners, Mr. S. Ramananda Rao and Tushar Das. Rao disappeared from the face of the earth. We never heard from him again. Das got a PhD in New York. He's been teaching there ever since. And two other classmates, Sati Arora and Bhaskar Bose. Sati was a marine engineer. He lived in San Lorenzo village with his wife Manju. Okay, obviously he was one of our wealthier classmates. And Bhaskar Bose was the smartest guy in class. And in fact, he was so smart, he made Professor Phil Alfonso realize that he should stick to teaching HBO and not try to teach the Bill French accounting case. All right, 28 years and 28 kilograms later, I finally catch up with them. Here's Sati Arora. That's what I mean by 28 kilograms later. Here's Bhaskar Bose. I really appreciated he drove, I think, for 7 hours from the farthest province or state in India just to catch up with me. All right, now, back in 1978, or a year after I joined AIM, Dean Gasti Ortigas made me the mother hen of the incoming MBM batch, 1978 to 1980, that's me there. And among my most treasured memorabilia is the silver platter that is inscribed to Junbo with love from the Indians of MBM 1980. All right, now I finally got to visit India for interviews. You will recognize, many of you will recognize Professor Bingasansa, Professor Purbarao, and Professor Joe Miranda. The bum stomach, what was that about? Okay, so we arrived in Mumbai late at night, and since all of us were lovers of Indian cuisine, the first thing we did was go for a late dinner, all Indian of course, and the following morning when we woke up, guess who had a bad stomach? Not Bing, not Joe, not me. Purba Rao had a bad stomach, okay? I think she hadn't eaten real Indian food for many years. And of course, we gorged ourselves for the rest of the week on kulfi. Here's St. Xavier's College, where we did our first interviews. That's the campus. And obviously, it's not the best venues for interviews. As you can see, we were in some kind of grade school classroom there with those wooden chairs. But we finally convinced when Ricky Lim was the dean that we should be staying in 5-star hotels, and they're much nicer venues. So here's a typical scene over here. And you'll notice I always took these pictures. I've got tons of them where I put the names and everything. so we would remember who was who. You might remember Mr. Damodar and Manjari. Miss Manjari was our AIM representative based in Mumbai, and Damodar was her assistant. Damodar had one particular skill. He could assign 200 applicants to interviews in 3 different cities, Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore, over a period of 3 days. Fantastic. And what I liked about these interviews, sometimes our alumni would join us for the interviews, and they were even tougher than the faculty. I mentioned here Samrat Khosla of MBM 2003 because Samrat is probably the best student I ever had, bar none. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe except for Richard Cruz. Now, obviously, for an Indian student, it's a very long journey from interview. See, here's Vivek Parmar being interviewed in a very nice venue. And there's Vivek Parmar again, finally in the classroom. Then we see him in his CAN group. And then we see him in an elective class, second year elective, being conducted by Bharat Parashar, who's MBM 80, and who also happens to be my godson. Here are some classroom scenes. And this is what students look like when they're pretending they're listening. This is the luckiest guy in class. Look at the two ladies he's seated next to. And look at those shifty eyes. Okay. Here's a fellow who was cold called and didn't know the answer. Here's Frankie teaching here. And here's the convocation. This is how, look at all those bright-eyed, bushy-tailed people. And of course, it's fun. These are fun nights, especially Diwali nights, okay? And here, there's Professor Victor Lim with his wife, all decked out in Indian attire. There's our president at the time, Bobby Del Campo, with Gloria Chan. And this is how they decked out the floor of the main lobby. Interesting, on Diwali night, you know, everyone except the Indian student would wear sari. And hug your favorite prof night and see all these guys who can't wait to give a hug to Professor Ted Manyanak. And there, of course, is Professor Maui Arroyo, who's probably wondering, do I really have to hug this guy? Okay. At one time, we had the inauguration of a mushola. And you notice here, because the food is free, not all of the attendees are Muslims. And of course, every now and then with prominent guest speakers like prominent alumnus, Ravi Prasad of Himalaya. And finally, graduation day. There we are. And if you were smart, you would bring a copy of your CV with you and slip it into Mr. Murthy's pocket. Or else you would join the recruitment fair in Singapore. But through the 40 years of teaching, I think my my most rewarding moments after teaching would be when meeting up with former students. There's Rakesh Mehta, my classmate, Sati. See, now he's the size of 2 people. Here's another favorite prof of yours, Nani Rojas. And here again, we have Jamu Francisco, who's one of our younger professors. Here at another alumni gathering is Professor Suresh Seshan, who taught MBM 80. Ray Seshan came from IIM Ahmedabad. He came as an exchange professor, and then he stayed and joined the Asian Development Bank, where he retired 30 years later. And I understand he's now back in Bangalore. Here's a reunion in the home of Professor Purvarao. Here's another young professor here, Matthew Escobedo. And of course, it's nice to meet up with former students and find out that they married each other. So here are some of those couples. Here we are. Over here, this is something you get to do after they've graduated, not while they're students. And over here, you get to drink with them. That's all Indian alumni ever do. Over here is, some of the really older people. And I see here Ajay Randava. I'd like to congratulate him because he just got himself a brand new baby granddaughter this morning in London. Okay, here more alumni functions. Here is a FAIM function held in, I think this was Delhi. And then finally, not quite finally, even more functions. And of course, I'm expected to give a talk every time. That's okay. And I'll never forget this because we got to visit the Infosys campus, and I got to have lunch with Narayan Murthy. Look at this fellow here. You see, I think, Mr. Murthy is such an icon. He's so iconic, and that look, his employees, they just love to catch him. And I actually offered this fellow here. I said, if you give me 50,000 rupees, I'll arrange for a photo shoot with you and Mr. Mukti. Okay, here finally, the Alumni Association of India getting together. There's Nikhil. Hey, this was, I was with President Bobby Del Campo. And I believe this is K.K. Noria, the father of Professor Nitin Noria, who at one time was the Dean of the Harvard Business School. Anyway, I'd like to drink a toast here to all my former students and colleagues who are here tonight. This is Pani Puri with vodka. Very powerful, despite its small size. And I'd like to thank the AIM Alumni Association for this opportunity. And I got this from them back in 1993, the first time I had a chance to meet the Alumni Association in India. So thank you very much. That's my presentation. Okay.
Thank you.
Stop the share. All right. There we are. Now we'll have the Nikhil.
Thank you, everybody. This is a small Thanksgiving to the AM, to the alma mater. Domingo, over to you again.
Right. Boy, that was a nice presentation. You know, I saw the picture of the MBA team that won the Yale case competition. Well, here's the here's the mug they gave me when they returned. I can't read the names anymore, but there's an Akash guard. If you're there, I still have your mug. Thank you. All right. So let's see. Now we're going to have a few minutes from each of our participating profs. Let's start with our birthday girl. Her birthday is tomorrow. Let's hear it for Professor Maya Herrera. Maya, where are you? There you are.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. I was really surprised because I've mostly been teaching non-degree programs, and if I teach at all in degree programs, it's electives. I only really started teaching seriously degree programs a few years ago. But anyway, I actually made what I thought was a brilliant idea. I posted this afternoon asking the students who's attending tonight and what do you want me to talk about. Unfortunately, they wanted me to talk about risk management and responding to the COVID-19 crisis. I was like, okay, I have 5 minutes. I can't do that. So I figured I'd follow Junbo and just share a few pictures and updates. So let's try to do this. Okay. My daughter suggested I should talk about what are the things I learned from my students, but that would include things like, I think her favorite one was no matter how early you tell a student that they have something to prepare for, they will always ask for an extension. So let's not do this, right? One of the best things I like about AIM is we have parties, lots and lots of parties. Like Junbo, my very first experience in AIM was as a student. That's me right there in the middle. And I think some of you will see yourselves here. This is from the 2019 homecoming. I think this is from the 2013 homecoming, this one. This is from the A site. I don't know how many of you know that we have a new school of innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. So we had, I think, a reunion of the ME and some of the current students a couple of years ago. So this was from there. And one of the things that's nice about AIM is the students who are still in Manila every Christmas, we still see them. So party hard. I think more than anything else, this is a symbol of AIM parties. Okay. I pulled out some pictures of unusual things we do. Okay. So we take offsites. I've gone to Canton Trade Fair with some of the students. This was from the 1 year when I visited one of the ME students, and I actually rode in this contraption, which most of you will see as the window cleaning contraptions. It's like being on a fair, except scarier. Helping students in international conferences. I actually co-wrote a book with Professor Macaranas, who's not here, on global value chains. And these are a couple of the students from MIB. I did not plan this. I bumped into them in Hong Kong. So one of the things I love about AIM and being with students is we learn while we have adventures. Okay? And after having taught so long in AIM, I have a friend practically anywhere in the world. So people visit or we meet them somewhere else, and there is almost always beer. I have a bunch of pictures of, I have a bunch of class pictures. I normally, I thought I would show this because this is one of the things I've been involved in the last few years is helping out with the Master in Entrepreneurship. And we normally are able to take class pictures always on the first day or at graduation or on the last day of class. I think there's actually someone from EMA 2018 right now. I think I saw a name. Um, I am still teaching the happiness elective. So those of you who remember that, hi, still doing that. I'm also still teaching enterprise risk management. So I think I have taught electives more than I have taught core courses in the MBA. Teaching much less finance. So those of you who know me from my early years, I'm mostly teaching strategy now, global strategy, innovation, and growth strategies. We introduced 2 new electives, social innovation and collaborative governance. And I'm involved in the Philippine COVID-19 crisis response because, as some of you know, I am an actuary. And those of you who actually wanted me to talk about risk management, let's do that some other time. Thanks for inviting me. Great to see everyone.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Maya. Maya did mention actually that there are a few new programs, degree programs that you guys, many of you might not be aware of. There's the Master of Science in Data Science, the Master of Science in Innovation and Business. And of course, a few years back, Maya revived the old Master in Entrepreneurship program. So there's quite a number of new AIM degree programs that you guys might not have heard about. So thank you, Maya, and once again, happy birthday in advance. Next, let's hear from my drinking buddy, Frankie Roman. You're next.
All right. Can you hear me? Am I coming out all right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, I always did have a loud voice. Anyway, let me get started. Let me first turn on my timer. So, good evening to everyone in India and around the world. Let me first echo the thanks of my colleagues for putting together this first, but hopefully only the beginning of many conversations between us. While I obviously acknowledge the hard work of Nikhil, I am also sure that the members of the AIM Alumni Association around the world, as well as in India, worked as a team to bring us all here tonight. So my collective congratulations to all. I was somewhat intimidated because I realized that Junbo and Maya were going to provide pictures and PowerPoints. I started in a PowerPoint presentation and visuals, but after about 8 slides, I figured it was going to take half an hour. So I'm going to revert to my original intention of delivering a personal, but hopefully useful discourse for this occasion. So the remainder of my 5-minute slot has 2 overlapping parts. I will talk about my other academic life beyond AIM, very briefly. And then that story will segue into my COVID revisions of how I hope to teach one component in my teaching strategy, which is scenario planning. I hope you get something out of this. By way of background, as a retired adjunct professor of AIM, I was and am assigned to the executive ed for non-degree programs, where the age gap is less pronounced. Unfortunately, under COVID, you can guess the demand for face-to-face short management development programs is dead, and the prospects of online delivery are only just beginning. But fortunately, I had another life. Late last year, I became chairman of the University of the City of Manila together with Professor Noel Leco, who is president. And this university has a pre-COVID enrollment of 8,000 students and 700 faculty members in many departments, including undergrad and graduate in business, law, medicine, and accounting. By way of background, what's relevant is that our university is located in Tramuras in Old Manila. And most of our students, as well as many faculty and staff, live in the area where 3 of the 10 COVID hotspots are designated. So it's, people don't talk about politically correct terms like modified quarantine. They just talk about hard lockdown. So the problem of this university is not so much the expected drop in student enrollment, but think about bringing 700 teachers who are used to the lecture, not case method, towards online delivery. I'm going to skip the gory details, unless you want to bring it up in the Q&A, but I want to focus on the process of how this university got together through a series of meetings. And it basically involves scenario planning in quotation marks. Primarily the president and the deans and the other staff members, really didn't follow what I taught in AIM with respect to scenario planning. Basically, what we did was short stories on an if-then situation. For example, the questions we ask ourselves is, depending upon the medical spatial distancing requirements, what is the economic viability of our classrooms? Another question we ask as a scenario is, if many of our students who are not necessarily rich share their basic mobile phones and desktops and have poor connectivity in the family, if we run this online delivery, are we in effect creating unintentionally second-class students? And another issue, the last one, is that as a pro-poor educational institution, we offer 100% scholarships to students who are Manila residents. Since COVID is decimating the incomes of lower middle-class households in Manila, it is likely that we're going to get increased enrollment from this desirable, but in a sense, secondary market. And what do we do about that? So those are the kinds of short scenarios that we were carrying on. Now, let me segue now and move to the second part of this narrative, because I only have a minute left to go. As a senior citizen, I'm still under lockdown, so I have a lot of time to think about my notes and slides. By the way, as an aside, there are courses like Maya's Enterprise-Wide Research Management, and a new faculty member teaches crisis management. So when we get to looking at what I learned out of COVID, there are two things I'd like to point out. Long-term strategic planning scenario planning is legitimate, but given the circumstances before IT and globalization, uncertainty is greater, events move much faster. So yeah, I think I'm about done. So short to medium term planning becomes essential. And we have to focus on what can go wrong. My timer just rang. Okay, so what else can we learn? I actually, and this is my advice, I actually downloaded the Center for Disease Control's Field Epidemiology Manual, which talks about how epidemiologists deal with something like COVID-19. And there are certain familiar things. I'll just mention one. They go beyond scenario planning. You have to be able to communicate with what they call the single overriding health communication objective, called a SACO. And that's something managers can learn. So let me end by going back to the university example. Our school is a logical and appropriate public health response, but we have to think about the consequences. For example, our students generally get medicines from our clinics. They get subsidized food. They're going to lose that. Many of their parents are nurses, so they might have to stay at home in order to take care of the children. And what will happen about domestic violence? And incidentally, one of the big issues that we're facing already is there's an incidence of rabies among our student body and families. I won't explain why, you can figure it out. But in effect, what we have to do when we look at scenario planning is to think through all the consequences and drill down into the possible unintended consequences of anything that we plan. So with that in mind, I'll thank you for listening to my story.
All right. Thank you very much, Frankie. I'm sure that was very informative. Yeah. Right. By the way, Frankie, I'm thinking of putting together a webinar myself. This one's going to be on how to make a do-it-yourself golf driving net in your backyard. And this is for people like Vasu Rao. Vasu, I know you're there somewhere, and I know you're missing your golf. Anyway, okay, we were scheduled to have Ricky Lim next. Is Ricky back online now or not yet? Nikhil? The word
Okay.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna go with the second R. You know, I didn't realize they're all most of my colleagues. Their names begin with R. Ricky, Rocky, Ron, Rene, Richard. How about that? Okay, let's have Rocky Lee. Rocky, you're on.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Jimbo, just making sure. Okay.
Loud and clear.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It is my privilege to speak to you all. This is the first time I'm probably meeting most of you. It's an honor to be actually, well, I don't know how it happened because I'm the youngest in terms of my tenure at AIM. I've been here 6 years, but it seems like a lifetime. So maybe that's why I qualified to speak tonight, but it's a pleasure for me to meet with you. AIM has been a big part of my life for the last few years. And what I'd just like to do is very quickly introduce myself and talk a little bit about what the 6 years at AIM have meant to me so far. So what I'm going to do, if it's okay, is share my screen. And hopefully you can see me while I do it. And I promise it won't be too much of a lecture style. Let's see, here we go. Okay. All right, so hopefully you guys can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so very quickly, I came to the Philippines. I'm Korean Canadian. I arrived basically in 2012, so almost 8.5 years ago to Manila. And I was lucky enough to join AIM in 2014. I was hired by Dean Ricky Lim and Dean Jumbo. So they're all I really know about academic life. But very quickly, I came as a practitioner. In my background, I worked for Bain and Lehman and Bristol Myers in the top technology commercialization firm called BTG, British Technology Group. So I had pretty much a international experience before I came. And I had the opportunity to join as a professor of finance and was helped greatly by my colleague and partner in crime, Professor Tet Manyalak, who saved me. And taught me what it is to be able to teach and the joys of teaching along with all my other colleagues. So what I wanted to really mention though in the short time I have was just what is the one thing that has really impressed me about AIM, and I want to share it with this audience because I feel you're a very special audience, and I'm going to tell you why. So in the school years 2017-18, I had the opportunity to become do what Jumbo does, so I became it's called the head or dean or whatever of the Graduate School of Business. And one of the first things I did, and I was excited to take the role, was I wrote this article for the Manila Times, and the title was "What Makes September Remarkable." You'll see it on the screen. And as you'll probably remember from your good times, the good old hard times, I started off my article by saying September's remarkable because it's the start of the Christmas season, as we all know, here in Manila, but also even better is that it's the start of the program, usually for MBAs, some of the other programs as well at AIM. And what this means is it's the signal of how people are committing themselves to transforming their lives and careers and digging deep, really, to overcome all these obstacles and become a member of the AIM community. And the one thing I mentioned, as you'll notice here, is I said, so while I'm just always delighted to know everybody in the incoming class, I'm especially excited to meet people who are the foreign students, especially the ones who've never been to the Philippines before. And the reason is because I can identify personally with them, because when I came, I'm Korean Canadian. This is not my home country. And coming here was a bit of a risk, but there are things we wanted to do for my wife's career and my own. And so coming here was a big adventure, and we were hoping a big step in our lives. And when I met the students, particularly from other countries, I felt that same vibe, and it really resonated with me. And I mentioned that here, that it's really incredible because, a lot of you out there today could have gone anywhere, but you chose the Asian Institute of Management, and you chose the Philippines. And I think for many of you, the Philippines was and it's been like this for a while, if I can say that after being here 8.5 years, it's been in this sort of saddle point position this whole time. It's sort of this on the verge of maybe falling apart and on the verge of greatness. And it's sort of just been there, and we all have that hope. And I think AIM represents that hope. And so I find it remarkable that meeting the students who take the risk to go beyond their borders and to go to a foreign land and to meet new people and meet new challenges. Sometimes it could be language. I find that remarkable. It's a story of my parents who left Korea after the Korean War and went to Canada through Germany. It was me. I mean, I went to the US for my schooling, so I guess Canada and the US aren't a big, we speak the same language theoretically, but have totally different attitudes. But it really represents how I felt when I came to the Philippines and joined AIM. The other thing about joining AIM as a foreigner was that I came as a practitioner. I was a newly minted PhD. And so I was really foreign to the academic life. And I had many moments where I didn't know what I was really doing. But the colleagues you see here today in Jumbo's pictures and the ones who are going to be able to speak, I mean, it was my privilege to learn from them. Everybody was truly caring about trying to give me their best insights. I acted like a Westerner and had big arguments. Richard Cruz knows this. Probably my most defining moment at AIM was a 3-hour screaming match with Richard Cruz, where he left the room. But in the end, it was all for the greater good because we were really discussing at that time whether we wanted to implement failure rules because we wanted to increase the quality standards. And we were debating about whether we should automatically fail 10% of the class. And we had a heated argument, but it was all in the name of trying to make AIM better. And it was an awesome moment for me. I didn't think it was possible in academia, but I think that's what makes AIM so special. It's got this practitioner academic perspective and people who can really be professional and who want the best for their students and themselves. And so my 6 years actually is coming to an end next month, but I wanted to leave you all with maybe the most important thing that I've learned from coming to AIM and what has impressed me the most about all of you and about AIM and my colleagues, the faculty, staff, students, and alums. And the reason this impresses me the most is because I've only known 2 schools in my life. I've had the opportunity to go to Harvard and to Wharton. And so, I mean, these are high standards to meet, but if there's one thing that I can truly tell you that resonates with me and is something that I find similar between all 3 schools and as a sign of excellence and greatness is this, that I truly believe that these 3 institutions, and I can say it from firsthand experience, and maybe you all can too with the hundreds of cases you all learned and the many nights that you crammed for wax and things like that, and the many arguments we had on the faculty side is, I don't think anybody takes for granted the idea of excellence, and we all know there are no shortcuts. It doesn't matter how brilliant you are. You need to work hard. You have to have rigor, and you have to be the real deal. And it's the only way to succeed in life. And when I look at how successful our alumni are in all these countries around the world, the proof is in the pudding. It's what I've always felt was special when I first joined AIM, the fact that the alumni have proven themselves, that they've taken the learnings from AIM and my colleagues and have done so well to influence the world as managers in Asia. I think is a testament to what AIM has stood for the last 50 years. And my hope and prayer is that it continues for the next 50, particularly for the students that I've recently been able to teach. So anyways, the last thing I just want to say is, the other thing I want to mention is AIM, you know, from a larger point of view, because I've been able to serve on the board and it's been also my privilege and honor. One of the things that has come up continuously in the past and definitely under my time there has been this idea of who owns AIM, who are the owners? And what I can tell you is you can find no better stewards than my faculty colleagues. I was a part of it. People shed blood and tears for the Institute. And as stewards, I cannot imagine a better, more committed group. I mean, we had people like Toby Canto that have been there from the beginning. So in that sense, I think that AIM is still in good hands. However, from an ownership standpoint, as you know, for AIM to be held in high regard, to be accountable for excellence for the next 50 years, there are no shortcuts, and the only people that matter, the owners, the principals matter the most, and to me, it's the alumni. And so my hope and prayer is that we have something special with AIM. And I hope that the alumni, particularly the risk takers of you all here, the international group, that all to come to AIM and do something with their lives. My hope and prayer is that you will be able to be the owners, think of AIM as owners, and really take AIM forward for the next 50 years and in the future, and really still have an impact, not just in the Philippines, but in Asia. And it's the century of Asia, so hopefully the world. Okay, so I'm sorry, I think I went a little bit over time, but thank you very much for your time, and it was a pleasure and honor to speak to you all.
All right. So thank you very much for that, Rocky. Certainly a heartfelt delivery, I know, for a fact, because you guys are not aware of this, but Rocky is going to be leaving AIM very soon. And I'm sure we all appreciate the thoughts and the good wishes that he is sharing with all of us. And,
I hope I can be an honorary member of FAIM, because I'm foreign and I feel my 6 years is pretty good as an alum. So maybe I can still join.
all right. That's,
as FAIM chair, I give you honorary membership. Don't
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. So our next R is,
I think Professor Ricky is there. Right on.
Oh, Ricky. Okay. So Ricky, where are you? You on board? There you are.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
Good. Okay. So you're next, Ricky. Are you ready?
I'm afraid.
2 minutes sharing. Or you want
I
some
will-
time?
3 minutes because.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on to Ron. Ron.
Okay.
Ron Chua.
Okay.
You okay? All right. Let's hear it for Ron.
No, Junbo, I meant I could share for 3 minutes, but you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Let Ricky go ahead.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, Ricky, go ahead.
I just have one thing to share. I don't know who came before me, and I apologize because I had a brownout. Most of you alums know what that is in the Philippines. My transformer blew and Meralco was out. So I just want to share one thing, and it's dear to my heart because this was the founder of our school. Yeah, he died about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I just wanted to share some memories I had with him. You know, I always knew Wash. When I became dean, Wash would invite me for lunches and intimately share with him his fervent wishes. Wash was the heart of AIM. Wash lived and breathed. It was his baby. And he always had the goodness and the future of AIM in his heart. Yeah, he would, I remember, berate people who didn't stick to the traditions of the case method and rigors of quality. And towards the end of his life, probably he saw that things were not developing the way he was, so he was discontented. But nevertheless, I just wanted to leave alumni with one lesson that I learned from Wash CSIP. You know, Wash taught me the power of sometimes it's better to be kind than to be good. It's better to be kind than to be right. It is better to be kind than to be right. I've seen him in a meeting where some professor was basically telling Wash, you're wrong, shouting. And Wash would smile and say, you know, we're going to fix it. And he would guide us out, his hands on our shoulders to the back, right? But you knew he would disagree. But yet, for the sake of diplomacy, for the sake of moving on, he would always keep his calmness and say, you know, you're right. You know, let's move on, okay? Let's try to find compromise together. So my parting words is that if you can all be a little bit of Wash CSIP, if you can find it in your heart to sometimes be kind rather than to be right, I think that would be the pinnacle of your career. You know, there are moments where you don't have to be all power, but if you can concede and be kind, I think that's what Wash would have wanted to leave with you. Over now.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that, Ricky. And I'm sure many of us, faculty and alumni and students alike, share those very same sentiments with regard to the great man, Mr. Washington Season. Okay. Next, Ron, are you ready?
Yeah.
Ron Chua, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. I guess, well, first let me say, it's really an honor and in a sense, both very exciting to be here and to see all of you. Just a little bit about me, because I don't think not all of you know me. I'm MBM 86, and then I joined AIM in 1987 as professor. So you can count the years, it's been a while. And I have made, and maybe a quick bit of sharing is when I joined AIM, I joined through the Rural Development Management track. And one of my main motivations, and some of you may, at the time in 1987, there was still no Master in Development Management program. But one of my main motivations then for joining AIM was essentially still, an idealistic part of me was to try to see if I can, through learning and teaching management, help the world become a better place. So there is this activist part of me that continues on. Now, through 87 till now, I have taught a number of you in various capacities. I have gone the rounds of the short courses of MBA, a little bit of MM, the executive programs, and I have also run the route of various courses, starting with operations, and I have dabbled in teaching basic finance, a little bit of marketing, and more recently, of course, gone into strategy. And what keeps me busy now is going back to the basics of what? Of basic decision-making and participant learning by the case method. That's what I've been advocating and trying to continue to fight for in AIM in these past few years. Okay? Now, what I'd like to share with perhaps is a little bit more of a personal reflection, particularly, all of us, as the COVID situation has hit all of us, I turned a bit reflective and have had the opportunity to sit front row, both to see, different types of leaders in action, and also to reflect on my own reaction to the situation. I guess one of my simplest reflections recently is that just a bit of sharing. I also sit on a faith-based credit cooperative, about not very big. We're about 1 billion, close to 1 billion in portfolio, right? But you can imagine when COVID hit, and we lend basically to small micro entrepreneurs, very small loan sizes. So you can imagine that when the COVID situation hit the Philippines, we faced serious challenges because for 3 months we could not collect, and right now we're just gradually resuming our operations. And where we get our money, essentially, because we're a cooperative, is about 1/3 from member savings, 1/3 from member share capital, and 1/3 from accumulated surplus. Okay, and when COVID hit, it was a big concern in terms of whether, and it still remains an issue, we will be able to tide over and survive the crisis. Now, my quick personal reflection is that, and a bit of a sharing, is I myself went through a reflection of what courage means. Because I have to be honest in saying that when COVID hit, my initial response to the situation of the cooperative as chairman was to hide my head in the sand and not face up to the issue for about a week or maybe even 2 weeks, right? And it took a while, that time, before I could face up to say, now we have to really dance to the music, okay? So that's my bit of sharing in terms of, you know, what courage means. I guess courage means, well, accepting your own frailties in times of crisis, and then being willing now to face up and deal with what needs to be done, right? And I guess also to accept that there are limits to what you can do, and the rest you just have to leave it, depending on your faith, up to what God can do. So that's part of my sharing. And I guess where I sit, I share the opportunity to also serve as a faculty representative to AIM's board. And Rocky and I have been, well, in a sense, trying to be also activists in trying to at least continue to communicate and bring out, you know, the important issues and important things that we think is precious to AIM. Okay? Maybe a last bit of sharing, because Junbo started by asking us to share about, you know, memorable moments, and the immediate thought that comes to mind, which goes back to my perhaps my basic reason for wanting to join AIM, is that the memorable moments are not one but several, and they come when I get emails or short SMS from former students who out of the blue say thank you and remember a certain class or a certain subject or something that we shared or discussed, and thanks me for having made a difference in their lives. And so I guess what I leave with all of you is ultimately, I guess, it's how we affect other people, right? And I'm sure all of you in your own capacities now are leaders in your own right, and cherish that opportunity of being a leader, of being a steward, and continue to strive for making a difference in the people that you serve. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ron. By the way, for those of you who may not be aware, Ron, Chua, and Rocky Lee have been our faculty representatives or members of the board of trustees, and the two have been very active in the sense that they have been activists, all right, asking tough questions, and of course, because they represent not only the faculty stakeholders, but also Ron, being an alum of AIM, is in effect representing the alumni stakeholders of AIM. And I hope that as their terms expire, the faculty will elect 2 other representatives to the Board of Trustees who will also truly represent the interests of the stakeholders of AIM. And remember, AIM has many stakeholders: alumni, students, faculty, and staff. All right, so with that, let's move on to Mr. Total Quality Management, Rene Domingo. Rene, are you?
Yep, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Well, good evening to everyone. This is gonna be very short. I don't have PowerPoint presentation. I've met many of you in my past webinars. I had 2 recently, one for this Indian Association, Alumni Association, and a couple of weeks ago I had one for the executive program. I talk about the pandemic, you know, how to develop strategies to survive in the pandemic and how to pivot your business in this coming new normal. And next week I'll have another one with the AIM Indonesian alumni. So I'm glad to see you again, and I'm happy to share a short story of how I came to be teaching in AIM. So I'll try to shoot two birds. I'll answer Jumbo's most memorable, experience, as well as lessons learned from this experience. By the way, I started in 1982, and would you believe, three of the panelists here were my former students, starting with Nikhil, who was my student in MBM, and next is Chua, and of course Richard Cruz. That's how old I am. But this is what makes you proud of teaching, the quality products. Okay. So anyway, I've been teaching pivoting recently for businesses to survive in the new normal. So my life, when I started, it was actually a series of pivot. When I joined in 82, I was asked to teach logistics in MBM elective. But as I was preparing for that, the professor for computers moved on, resigned, and AIM told me, can you teach computers? So I had to pivot right away to prepare a new course outline for computers. Yeah, computers at that time was basic. I had to teach basic programming and VisiCalc, all those spreadsheets. And then a month later, I was told again, hey, the QA professor resigned. Huh? You have to teach QA, quantitative analysis. Imagine that in a span of a few months, I have to pivot 3 times. From second year, I had to teach first year, and I have to do a different subject. And then a couple of months again, the OM professor resigned. Then I have to teach OM. Well, that was not a difficult pivot because OM was my forte, was my expertise. So for several decades, I've been teaching operations management, especially the lean system, TQM, all those things I've taught you, and lean thinking. Now, about 5 years ago, the planet, the triple bottom line was getting interesting, and I told the Zwillig School, I like to offer, sustainable operations elective, which I can teach to MDM as well as MBM students. Oh, by the way, I'll backtrack a little bit. I forgot to. I remembered there was another pivot. This was MM. So I was asked to shift from MBM to MM. And in MM, there was no subjects. Everybody should teach everything. The rule in MM, every week we have a pile of cases. And Jumbo, if you remember this, the rule in MM is you throw all the cases on the floor. Huh? And every faculty would pick up the case. Huh? And whatever you pick up, you teach that next week. And you know what happened? I pick up an accounting case, very difficult. Then suddenly I pick up a marketing case. And then a cost accounting. Oh my God, what do I do with this? Fortunately, I have background in accounting. I have background in marketing. So I have to pivot several times. I was in MM for several years. I know some of the my MM students are listening. Anyways, it was it's how you learn the ropes. How you learn the ropes, because we teach general management, so you should be able to do this quick preparation, quick setup. Anyway, back to sustainable operation. So I've been teaching this for 5 years. I think some of your students here are listening have been my students in that elective called SO. So I've been teaching that for several years, and this is how I developed my interest in triple bottom line. Though I'm not really in the development school, but I teach how to apply it in operation. It's more the execution that's more important. And quite recently, because of this pandemic, I probed deeper into this crisis, and it turned out that there are a lot of lessons to be learned. How do you apply operation systems, these kinds of thinking into this? So as part of my sharing, on top of writing books, okay, I thought I'll go to social media so I can share my thoughts faster. I can publish faster. So you see me in my Facebook, in my LinkedIn. So what would be my latest pivot? Maybe I'll pivot into a blogger, a Facebook blogger. Maybe that's how to change the world. And you never stop learning. So finally, let me end with this note. Adapt to the environment. And don't think you're students and we're teachers. No, we're all teachers. We have to learn, we have to teach, we have to share. Okay? I know there's a divide in this webinar. We are teachers, you are students. No, we're all teachers. We're here to share. We're here to learn and share at the same time. So I hope with this short message, we can live through this crisis, survive it, and thrive. Okay, so thank you, Jumbo.
Thank you, Rene. And that was very nice of you to remember all of those things. You know, Rene Domingo, I remember way back when he was new in the faculty, I took him around Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, and Singapore to give a talk on total quality management. And back in the day, see, nobody had heard of it. And I swear to God, we filled up these hotel ballrooms with our audiences who wanted to listen to Rene. At the time, he was the acknowledged expert in the region on total quality management, and I'm glad to know that he has kept it up. He has continued sharing his developing and sharing his ideas on basically on better management. That's what Rene is all about. That is his mission in life. Thank you, Rene. So now let's okay. I guess we get to the last in our panel of faculty. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Richard Cruz. Richard, are you there? Richard.
Can you hear me, Jinbo? Hold on. Junbo, can you hear me?
I can hear you. What was that echo?
All right, okay. Sorry. Hold on. I'm doing something here. Okay, so good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. I have I don't have a PowerPoint, but I brought some music. Okay, so I'm gonna play. So you know, in the Oscars, when you're talking too long, what they actually do is they play music to kick you off the stage. So there's something that you call like walk-off music. So what I actually have is I have music that's 4 minutes and 40 seconds long. So I'm gonna play it, and once the music goes, then I'm gonna end my speech. Okay, I hope you can hear it. Okay. All right, so I have some notes that I wanted to talk about. So my talk is just 3 topics, okay? First topic is gratefulness and gratitude. So I joined AIM in 1995, okay? And if you consider that last year was the 50th anniversary of AIM, the midpoint actually of AIM was 1995. So actually I entered AIM right at the middle. So I graduated in 97. The reason why I joined AIM was my boss from Ayala Land was an AIM graduate. Her name was Dina Bayangos. I think she was batch 1988. She was my boss in Ayala Land. And, you know, like many of you, I know that your first inspiration to maybe think about going to AIM was maybe you were working for somebody who graduated from AIM. So I joined AIM, and her instruction to me was, just treat it like work, Richard. You know, don't treat it like school, treat it like work. So every day, prepare like you were gonna go to work. When you're in the classroom, treat it like you were in a meeting. So honestly, I would say that she was the one who prepared my mindset in terms of like how to cope with what was happening in AIM. And a lot of my success at AIM, actually, I attribute to the kind of guidance that she gave to me. So that's what happened. And, you know, of course, I graduated in 97. I was making a presentation, and Washi Sip saw me one day, and he asked me if I wanted to join the faculty. Jess Gallegos asked me, and I said, of course. How many times do you get that opportunity to be asked? So I joined. And it's been 97 to 2020. So it's been about 23 years since I've been in AIM. Long time. So you know how old Rene is if I was his student and I've been in AIM for 23 years already. Okay. But I just want to say that if you ask me how I feel right now about my 23 years in AIM, I have nothing but gratefulness and gratitude because everything that I am today and a lot of the experiences that I've had that shaped me is really because of the professors I've met. So I want to say a big thank you to all of the professors who were there from the very beginning. I won't name them because I might forget some names and somebody might get mad at me. So say hi to all the professors, the founders. Um, I'm very grateful for all of the experiences. And I also want to thank all of the students that I've handled. So I've handled a lot of you from 97 to 2020. My feeling every day at AIM was that, you know, for the finance people here, I feel like I was always being marked to market every day. All right. I feel like, you know, for those innovators here, I feel like I was always a prototype every day that was in some kind of development, and that every day I was trying to seek validation or some kind of customer traction. So, you know, that kind of mindset kind of drove me to make sure that, you know, never be complacent, you know, never rest on your laurels, and really just really try to work hard and make sure that, you know, you give your best every day in the classroom. Of course, we're not perfect. None of the professors here would say that they're perfect, but I would say for sure that all of the professors here, as you know, Rocky aptly said, it's always a blood, sweat, and tears every day for all of the professors. So thank you to all of the professors. So as you know, I got sick in 2018, and I think a big reason why I got out of the hospital in one piece is because, you know, AIM took care of me, but not only AIM, but more importantly, the whole AIM community took care of me. Okay, so, you know, there was a lot of expenses involved. And, you know, when I woke up, surprise, surprise, my wife said that there were so many people sending money from different parts of the world to help me with my hospital bill. So, you know, I'm very grateful for all of that. I didn't expect it, but I'm grateful. And somehow I asked myself, why does somebody like me in ICU get saved? And, you know, we don't know. I don't really know. Maybe what's the mission? What's the new mission? But, you know, I just want to say that, you know, I've been in AIM for a long time, and some people might think the more things change, or a lot of things have changed. You know, I'm sure every alum here thinks that their batch is the best batch. They always think that their class is always the best class, and everybody else is like, you know, their experience was not so good. But I will say that it's true. You know, the color of the paint on the wall might change, or the seats in the case room might change, or the way we give the readings change. But basically, it's really the same. Okay, it's basically a group of people very motivated, trying to change their lives and trying to change their world, and coming together and trusting each other and going through all the pain together. So I think that's really the common experience of everybody who's gone to AIM. I'm not saying that we're better than any other school. I'm just saying that our experiences were very unique and very special. Okay. So on that note, I'd like to say that, you know, I really relate to Rene. For many of you, some of you know me as a guy who was teaching finance and accounting, and then recently I've been teaching marketing and innovation. And I really relate to what Rene said. And I think the idea is this, and I want to end on this note. I think the way AIM has trained all of us is that you got to be ready to pick up whatever weapon, you know, is being handed to you at that time. You got to be ready to take on whatever role is being handed to you at that time. Because, you know, your role might change, the year might change, the strategy might change, but at the end of the day, what doesn't change is the mission. The mission doesn't change. And I think the reason why I've stayed in AIM for so long is that I love the mission, and I'm so aligned with the mission, you know. And my favorite saying basically is this, and I'll end with this. Education doesn't change the world. Education changes people, and it's people that change the world. Okay, so I'm very happy and grateful to be part of this wonderful group of people, and I know that every day you're doing your darn best to change the world. So cheers, everybody, and I hope that you can laugh. You can laugh now, and you can smile, because I think we're going to start the rest of the reunion. Okay, so thank you so much to everybody, and thank you, Jinbo.
All right. So thank you very much, Richard Cruz. And now it's time, you guys have been listening for the past hour and a half to your faculty. And I know many of you have been listening to your faculty for 2 years, some for 1 year, some for less than that. Okay, so we don't want you to be spending any more time listening. We want to hear from you. But of course, as the MC, I get to have the last word. And also as the oldest member of the panel, of the faculty panel, just a couple of things. Number one, when I retired in 2017, somebody asked me, a student asked me, in fact, Prof, you've been teaching for 40 years. What have you learned about management in all those 40 years? I'll tell you this, I've learned one thing. I've learned that what goes around comes around. That the fundamentals that my professors, people like Gabby Mendoza, like Gasti Ortigas, and Vic Limlingan taught me, these are the fundamentals. And I'm happy to see that younger people I myself have taught, like Ron Chua, for example, and Richard Cruz, are actually teaching those same fundamentals. You talk about critical thinking, what we used to call motivation, now we call engagement. They've just given different names for basically the same things. They've just given different names for. And I like to think that when our alumni are asked, what is it that you like the most about your AIM education? When they point to the case method, essentially they are talking about what people like Gabby Mendoza wanted us teachers to teach. And that essentially is to teach our students how to think for themselves, how to think critically, how to reason, how to think logically on their feet. The second point I'd like to make, taking advantage of having been appointed the MC for tonight's event. All of you have somewhere, maybe hanging on the wall in your office or hanging on the walls in your study room, your AIM diploma. Many years ago, a Jesuit mentor once told me, your diploma, the diploma is not a warranty against defects. It is not a guarantee of good performance. It is rather the expression of hope, the hope of your teachers, that what they have tried to inculcate in you, the values of a professional, ethical, socially responsible managers, have been in fact inculcated in you, and that you have lived your professional lives according to these values. I like to think that all of you here present this evening have lived up to those values and have done your teachers very, very proud. So thank you very much. Now let's move on to the next part of our event here tonight. I know that in homecomings, everybody gets drunk, okay? I think I'm kind of drunk myself. And because we've had a bit of alcohol in us, we start asking questions of our faculty ask questions of our students that, in the classroom, we never dared to ask. So here you are, here's your chance. Ask any question you'd like to ask. And I will turn over to Nikhil to moderate this Q&A session. Nikhil, are you ready?
Well, you had the best part of the homecoming. Now I will be the villain. Anyway, I'm used to it. So anyone who wants to ask a question can raise their hand and I'll give them the opportunity to ask. Heyman Jalan, you can go. Heyman, you can unmute yourself, Heyman, if you have any.
Why don't I go? Hi.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Isa from MBA 2015. I just finished working out, so y'all don't want to see me. But just since we're here, why is Prof Rocky leaving? I'm so sad. I mean, he was fantastic hire. I learned so much from him. And I feel like it totally diminishes the learning experience if he's, I'm going to stop, but I'm really sad to see him go.
Professor Rocky.
Well, Isa and the other students that I've had, yeah, it's my privilege. Thank you for asking. I guess the best way to put it is that, it looks like I'm not fitting in. So my time is coming to an end. I don't know how else to put it, but yeah, so maybe that's the nicest way to put it. So, but you know, maybe someday, maybe there'll be a better fit someday. I don't know. Yeah, so that's all I can really say. But Isa, thank you. It means a lot to me. As Ron Chua said before, there's no, I never knew this feeling. I've been, you know, I've had a lot of successes in my life in business, my startups and things like that. But there is no, I did not know until I took this job how much it means when you hear someone say thank you, and you know that you've impacted their lives in some sense. I think of all of you, the students, as you know, in my time, and I think this, I'm speaking for everybody, faculty or staff, we all think of you guys as mustard seeds. And so there's nothing greater than seeing the mustard seed grow. And I feel like my time at AIM has been, I've been a mustard seed. Richard, you know, other people I think feel the same way. I've been a mustard seed. Ron, people who went through the system, I was not lucky enough to go through the AIM system, but like I said, it's very similar to what I went through anyways. And so as a mustard seed, I'm definitely not the same mustard seed I was 6 years ago. Thanks to everybody, students, alums, faculty, and definitely staff. I didn't get to mention staff before, but when I speak about stewards, I think staff, we'd be nowhere. I mean, the routines, the knowledge, the tacit amazing things about AIM.
Sridhar Memory, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, I am a MM 2005 graduate, and I see that, you know, the MM program is not offered anymore. And so in this context, I would like to ask, what do you think is the future of AIM in particular and management education in general?
Question is directed to whom?
Let me answer that question.
Any one of them, please.
Yes. Who's that? Sridhar. Yeah, Sridhar. As I mentioned in my presentation, I am an MM alumnus myself. All right. But I was principally responsible for putting the MM on hold, and so that the faculty could reinvent the program. Looking at the numbers, the program was moribund. In other words, enrollments were declining significantly. It was not getting the kind of students that it was really designed for. And, you know, it was not being fair to those who had in fact, who were in fact enrolling for the program. So I went to the board and asked for a moratorium on the MM so that we could reinvent it. Now, after spending a year on reinventing the MM, and we were preparing to relaunch a totally reinvented version of the Master in Management program, several circumstances kind of overtook us. And what happened was the accreditation body, the AACSB, basically said that AIM needed to fix certain things before it should be thinking about relaunching an old program, a reinvented old program. All right, so we had to hold that off for 1 year. The following year, we were again preparing to relaunch the MM, and then the Board of Trustees decided that we had other problems we needed to attend to first. So they said, before you dedicate all of these resources to relaunching a reinvented MM program, you better set your house in order first. I'm speaking very frankly now, all right? And so it was pushed back again for another year. And then, of course, thereafter, so many other, we were overtaken by so many other events. And then when we started studying the market, it looked like we were not going to get too many enrollees anyway. As a matter of fact, what was happening was that the executive MBA, the part-time or evening MBA program that AIM had relaunched, was in fact gaining more enrollees. And the market that would have gone to the MM were preferring the EMBA. So we didn't feel that we should go ahead and relaunch the MM. So basically, much as I personally, okay, you know, for obvious sentimental reasons, would have wanted to keep the MM alive at that point in time, it did not make much sense to do so. And as you can see, we've been overtaken by even more events ever since. All right. So there you are. I hope that's a satisfactory answer.
Yeah, Fisit, you can go next.
Okay. The visit from MM87 from Bangkok. Just a more relaxed question, professors. Maybe I address to everyone. This is a kind of behind the scene question. I just curious, want to know how you prepare the case before you go to class. How you prepare teaching? Because just now, Professor Rene Domingo said that the way you allocate or distribute the case is just you throw the case on the floor and everybody, one of you pick it up. How you prepare to teach in the class?
Okay, Rene, why did you answer that? You got us into this mess.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's one of the magician's secret you don't share. Anyway, well, it's an attitude visit. It's an attitude. You know, when you land a job in the corporate world, you don't know what's coming, right? Your boss will tell you, do this project, do this, that. It may be so unrelated to your specialization, but you have to do the job. Otherwise, you don't keep the job. So it's resiliency. You should be able to be prepared anytime. I call it quick learning. How do you learn quickly? Okay? And we need that during this pandemic because this is a new crisis. So you have to learn fast. So this is one of those management skills that we try to teach you. We don't give you enough time to study the case. And that's part of the environment. So don't complain if you don't have enough time because faculty don't have enough time also. Because that's the real world. Okay? We don't have time for preparation. It's a given. Okay? Nobody will give you time in the corporate world. We follow the pace of the markets, right? If the markets are in a hurry, you don't tell the market, please wait for me. No. It will leave. Opportunity will leave you behind, right? Your competitor will leave you. So visit is more an attitude rather than a methodology. Once you have that right attitude, you'll find the means. You'll find the means. So that's basically the best answer I can give you so far.
Thank you, Prof.
Hey, Fisit, let me just add to that, Kun Fisit. Okay.
Thank you.
I remember one of your, I think you had a Korean classmate, and he would always come to me and complain that he said, you know, they would get in the MM, we would give them a whack every other Friday evening. You remember that? And he would always complain to me. He would say, Professor, why, you know, today I get HP, and then next 2 weeks later I get LP, and then after that I get P. Why are you so inconsistent? And I said, that's life. Okay, you're not going to get the same boss, you know, evaluating your work with the same criteria every time. So get used to it. And you know what? Years later, I was visiting Korea, and I had dinner with him, and he said, you know, you and Professor Vic Lim, you're correct. Life is one big whack. Life is one big whack. You never know what you're going to get. So he said, thanks to the MM, I'm ready for whatever happens. That's it. That's Gabby Mendoza's philosophy, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
People like Rene and me I forget about your syllabus. Just throw all the cases down the stairs and then pick them up in whatever order they come. That's how you teach.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Harivardhan. Go ahead.
Probably I direct this question to Junbo. I am MBA 2010 Junbo. As a professor for so long, what do you think should AIM do to regain its past glory? Because you have seen the best days of AIM and you're still there.
Well, I'm no longer there, strictly speaking. I do part-time work for AIM once in a while. Okay, let me say this. Many years ago, I posed a question to the Board of Trustees. I asked them if there were, and this was like maybe what, 15 years ago or maybe 20 years ago. I asked the trustees, if there were no Asian Institute of Management today, would anybody establish one? And the answer was, maybe not. Not even Harvard would think of putting together an Asian Institute of Management. The point I was making was that maybe AIM had already fulfilled its original mission, and it was time to go looking for another totally different mission. Over the years, and I've discussed this with Nikhil, over the years, okay, alumni from Jakarta, alumni from Kuala Lumpur, alumni from India would ask me and my colleagues, why doesn't AIM set up a campus in Jakarta, in Mumbai or Bangalore, in Kuala Lumpur? And my answer was always very simple. We do not have the resources. We don't have the money. We don't have the faculty to send over to Jakarta, to Kuala Lumpur, to anywhere in India to put up an AIM campus there. I told them, if you love AIM so much, I think what you love is not AIM, the campus in Makati. What you love is AIM, the idea of AIM, a place where young people can learn to become professional managers. Remember the original AIM mission, to develop competent, socially responsible managers for Asia. We've done that. There is a core already of such competent, socially responsible managers all over Asia. Now, what should alumni be doing? Alumni should then be creating campuses, AIM campuses in other parts of Asia using local resources. Get the Indian business community to support an AIM in India. Get the Indonesian business community to support an AIM in Indonesia, and so on and so forth. Okay? But poor little AIM, which is barely able to, to keep body and soul together every month, every year in Manila, and asking them to, set up shop somewhere else. Come on. I like to think through the alumni, okay, you've already imbibed the AIM spirit, okay, the values that your faculty hope to inculcate in you, such that you can carry that with you now and create new centers of management excellence in your own countries, in your own cities. That's what I have to say about that issue. Sorry.
Thank you, Jumbo. Siddharth, can you go for your question?
Hello, everybody. This is Siddharth Chaturvedi, MBA 2011, cohort 6. Yeah, my question is very personal also and professional also, sir, that since what Jundo was also saying, we are in a constant learning process. And what the past month or so has shown us due to the efforts of the Alumni Association is that we are learning from each other a lot. But a structured kind of a learning system, which like a Coursera or an edX is providing, can we look at developing something similar, even if in bits and pieces, especially on the emerging management systems like shared value, or like Professor Cruz is looking at innovation management. These are some of the emerging things, and for people like us who are alumni, it will be very, very helpful to kind of get updated, if at all, in some way. And listening to the same professors will help us actually. There will be a rapport, and we can kind of go back to the same kind of principles, and also get ourselves updated. Your thoughts, please, sir. Thank you so much.
Anybody? Richard Cruz, you want to answer that?
Yo, Siddharth, how are you? Yeah, look, I'll just say, right, that the world is really complex, and you know, we all have to figure out what kinds of differences we make every day. So let me just tell you about the consultation I had yesterday with some students. So until today, we have consultations with students, and you know that look on the face of a student when they realize that they learned something new. I'm sure you guys had that. So until now, we're still getting those looks from the students the same way I was getting them way back in 1997. So I guess one thing that I want to say is that the system that AIM is running and has known to run really well, I think they're still doing it well. Okay, but obviously the bigger question is the system still relevant in today's world? And the question really is, should we move digital? Okay. And the reality is, like all 50-year-old organizations, there's really some kind of rigidity trap in terms of like, should we change or not change? Should we try something new or not? Should we take a risk or not? And like many educational institutions, like hospitals and governments also, maybe we've delayed making that decision for a long time. And you know, maybe some people wanted to, maybe some people didn't, maybe we didn't want to make the investment or not. But I think right now, I think the question now is fairly moot in the sense that COVID has forced our hand already to do it. So I really see that, and I think Junbo's point about, you know, not getting too attached to the swimming pool area or the dorm or the lobby or the whack box or, you know, the smoking area next to the dorm and all of these things. I mean, that's part and parcel of many of our experiences in AIM. But the reality is a lot of programs in AIM are going to start moving towards blended. And I'm sure executive education is going to go more on those kinds of classes that you talked about. And from where I'm sitting, I'm pretty confident that we'll still do a good job. Okay, so our mantra is, regardless of the channel, regardless of the platform, the objective is to deliver transformational learning. And I think our tagline is still quite representative of the spirit behind everything that we do. Lead, inspire, transform. I'll just share one last idea on that. When we started going online, my limiting idea was thinking that this is just going to be temporary and we're going to go back to the case room like where Junbo is right now. And it took me about 2 weeks to realize that it may not happen. You know, we might have an MBA class that may not spend as much time as they used to in the case room in Meralco or in Ben Press or, you know, Lopez Room. So after 2 weeks, I realized that as a professor of AIM, the only choice that I can make, which I've already made, is this: that I am fully embracing the platform that we're on right now, and whatever achievement or accomplishment that I was able to do while in the case room, I'm really striving to be even better and more influential and more impactful than I used to be, and try to do that on this platform. Okay, so I'm doing a full embrace. We're gonna retool. I think we're all young enough to do it. Frankie's doing it too. So Frankie and Junbo, they're young enough to go, you know, wait for Frankie's online course. So we're gonna do it, okay? And I don't have any serious doubts that whatever we do will have its success. Of course, you know, the world is a complex world. So, you know, we're not gonna capture the global market share, but we will make our mark in the communities that we take care of and the communities that we care about.
Junbo, may
yes,
I?
Maya, please go ahead.
Just specific to the question of how some of the alumni can access the I guess the new material that AIM is bringing to the public. Um, I think one of the things that and thank you for Richard for talking about what AIM is doing now. AIM was actually very early. We converted to online education in March, and what that means is that we have a lot of material that has now become easier to access for the alumni, because most of our old executive education programs were face to face. I don't know how many of you have been following the AIM webinars. And if you haven't, please feel free to organize them. But what I really wanted to say was in the areas of sustainability, global value chains, collaborative governance, AIM has both run publications as well as is offering new programs. So if you are at all interested in in the areas of social innovation, sustainability, global value chains, please feel free to email the faculty. I think Professor Man, I've written a lot on social innovation. Professor Man also has, and Professor Domingo has a lot on sustainable operations. We actually published with Professor Macaranas. I co-wrote a book on going global together, which is how large companies can help MSMEs access global value chains. We'd be happy to give you some of the material. If there's anything you're interested in as alumni, I think one of the things that maybe we've been remiss in is being able to continue to enrich the alumni with the new research that AIM is doing. And if any of you are interested, please feel free to email us and we will send you the links. And AIM has been running webinars on responses to COVID-19. If you are interested in those, we'll also send you the links to the recordings of the webinar. So I'm happy for the question, because I think this is one of the things that, because of the crisis, there's always opportunities in crisis. We actually can help you access a lot of the material that AIM now has. So I hope that helps.
Thank you, Maya.
Okay, anyone else, my colleagues, like to respond to that question? Okay, I'd like to share this with you guys, because you know, for the past several months now, I know my colleagues at AIM who've been actually teaching online, who've converted their courses online, have had challenges, have overcome some challenges, and have adapted to other challenges. Let me just say this. You know, AIM is essentially, what AIM is what they call a campus-based education system. All right. Now, the value proposition of a campus-based educational system essentially consists of two things. Number one is the knowledge dissemination. Okay, they're purveyors of knowledge. The second is credentialization, meaning because of their accreditation, when they issue a diploma, in effect, it becomes a warranty against defects and a guarantee of good performance. All right, and therefore that means that the product of such an educational system is marketable. All right. Now, in the last 10 years, what have the so-called MOOCs, the massive online open courseware, okay, and e-learning in general, what have they proven? Well, they've proven that they can deliver content, and they've proven that as universities have begun to accredit these online courses, these free online courses, okay, they are now being credentialized. So those two things that have been the value proposition essentially of schools like campus-based schools like AIM, okay, they are now under threat. And there's a third thing that these open online courses are doing. The brokers like edX and Coursera, they're using data science and they're using their databases to provide placement. In other words, they're identifying their best students and promoting those students to recruiters. So that's a third thing that they're doing. So what schools like AIM need to do now is to figure out, well, if that is in fact the wave of the future. Now, mind you, people have been scoffing at online learning, at e-learning, at MOOCs for the last 10 years. But what's happened? I'll tell you what's happened. Because all the schools have had to either shut down the last 2 months or go online, people are now saying, hey, online is not so bad after all, okay? It's like what happened in the Second World War, when in the United Kingdom, all the men had to go out to war. That means only women were left to man the industries and the factories. And they discovered, hey, women can do a good job. And after that, what happened? Well, it was okay for women to work. And now the same thing is happening here. They're finding out, hey, online learning is not so bad after all. It works. It can be made to work. And that is now the future. And AIM will need to adapt to that. The trick is not to force your existing structures on the technology. The trick is to allow the technology to evolve and to adapt to it, okay? And there are, in other words, it has its strengths and weaknesses. And for me, all of you guys will talk about case method. What did I learn from AI? Case method, case method, case method. Fine, okay? Essentially, that means that your professors are good at one thing. They're good at facilitating the learning process, all right? And it doesn't matter whether it happens in the classroom, it happens in a Zoom meeting, it happens wherever, okay? Your faculty are good at that one thing, all right? And what AIM needs to do now is find a way to make use of that particular and unique competence, okay? To continue to serving its mission. That's my saying.
Thank you, Prof.
Nikhil,
Chua.
where are you? Next question.
Last question, Sumuk Guru Prasad. Make it short and please go ahead.
Sumuk.
Since this is Sumuk, I am from MBA class of 2009, cohort 3. And since this is the last question, I would make it light-hearted. We have gone to many classes with unprepared cases, having not read even a single line of a case. I would want to ask the professors here, have they had such kind of an experience? And if yes, could they share?
All the time. Anybody care to answer that? Ron, how do you deal with students who come to class unprepared?
No, his question is if professors have gone to class unprepared.
Oh, professors. Oh.
Correct.
Okay, let me
my
share this.
answer first.
Oh, go ahead, Ron.
Even if true, I won't say yes, right?
You guys remember Professor Titos Ortigas? Okay. Well, it was his father who was Dean Gasti Ortigas at the time who brought me into the AIM. And the very first class I handled was an executive education program, a 2-month management development program for fairly senior executives. And it was their last week of the 2-month program. So they already had horns. You know what I mean? Okay. So I was shoved into that class to take over for some professor who hadn't returned from Africa, some safari. And I was made to teach something that I was not familiar with. And there were 2 really outstanding students in that particular class. One was Senator Ernie Maceda, and the other was a very famous television newscaster, Bong Lapira. And Bong Lapira, who was sitting in front of the class, says to me, and he had this nice voice, said, Professor, could you explain to us, please, how this particular model correlates with Freud's id, ego, and superego? And I looked at him and I said, gee, I don't know. And it so happened that Dean Ortigas was passing by and saw this. And as soon as I ended the class and returned to my office, I had this memo that said, please see Dean Ortigas right away. And so I went over to him and he said, he goes like this. That was his habit. He says, when a student asks you a question and you don't know the answer, number one, you're not supposed to know the answer. That's not your job. Number two, your job is to make him think. So what you have to do is throw the question right back at him. So you should have asked Mr. Napira, why is that question so important? And what that will do is force the student to think. And people like me and Rene Domingo and Frankie Roman, and hopefully the ones we taught, like Ron Chua and Richard Cruz, have also kind of grown up with that kind of thinking. Our job is not to do the thinking for students. Our job is to make our students think. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we had a great webinar, virtual homecoming with our gurus. It's been over 2 hours, and I'm sure it's this time in Manila. So thank you very much, all the professors, for having a candid talk with us and answering the questions with the same elan which you taught us the cases. Thank you very much. If anybody of you have any parting words, please let us know before we close the session. Jumbo, Richard, Ron, Professor Frankie Roman.
I've spoken too much already. Everybody, thank you so much.
Just stay safe.
Stay